everybody. My name is Toni Marcolini. Welcome to the podcast. It may interest you to know. Today, as you know, I'm always big on the authors, so I'm very excited to have author William Keck with me today. Welcome, William.
Thank you, Tony. I'm excited to speak with you today.
So you have a book, right? Cringeworthy Confessions of a Tabloid Bad Boy. Really, when you step upon a star, is the main title of it. So this is an exciting, sort of interesting read. um, which I thought what I liked a lot about it is I thought you went through something that not a lot of people are doing, right? Like I mean, you draw in on your years of entertainment experience um, through a world that we sort of know about, we hear about, you hear the rumors about, and you sort of weave us through. I felt like the underbelly of this world. So let's talk a little bit about, your decision to do this and how the book, formulated its creative origin in your brain.
Yeah, well, the concept is that I grew up like so many of us, a child of television. I grew up in the 70s and 80s. So I was an only child, and I sort of got lost in the worlds of Gilligan's Island and the Brady House and the Carringtons of Dynasty and the Ewings of South Fork. And these people sort of became my surrogate families. But what was different with me is that I actually decided to go meet them. And I did. I met all of them. There's a kind of a collage behind me of some of the TV families that I got to visit on their turf. I mean, I ended up meeting the Ewings at South Fork, and I met the Dynasty cast at the Carrington Mansion up in Northern California. And here I am with the Desperate Housewives on Wisteria Lane. But the way I originally started to meet them was not in the best of terms. I took a job at the National Enquirer. So this was a way
Which
I
is
could.
what I felt was kind of like the underbelly of like,
Well, for sure. Yeah. I mean, and
yeah.
that time the Inquirer had so much power. The Inquirer really struck fear into these celebrities because they had hundreds of employees who were just sneaking around everywhere trying to find out their deepest scandals. And I was one of them. So I got to meet all these dying legends of Hollywood, but at their hospital rooms and in their weddings and then sneaking into their friends' funerals. So that's what the book is about initially. And then it goes on to show my evolvement from a bad boy to a better boy to a good boy who ended up befriending a lot of these people that I antagonized back in my foolish youth.
Yeah, I mean, to your credit, I thought that uh, you were, you didn't sugarcoat yourself either,
Mm-mm.
right, in the story, which I thought it was to your credit because I think a lot of people do, especially when they retell a story that's got them in it,
Mm-hmm.
right? They tend to sugarcoat their own involvement, but I didn't think you did that, which I appreciated.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I mean, there were some chapters in there that I thought made me look so horrible that friends were saying it's a good story, but you can't put this in there. People are going to hate you. And I said, well, that's sort of the point here. I'm not going to be exposing celebrities' lives anymore, or I would be a hypocrite. I'm exposing my own secrets, the things that I did to these people to get the stories. But what I did do to sort of save my butt is I reached out to most of these celebrities and I gave them a chance to read the chapters about them. And a lot of them chose to respond. They wrote little essays in the book from their perspective of what they felt it was like to be pursued by me and then ultimately approached to work with them. And then what it was like to work with me as a producer after starting out running from me and being upset that I was hiding in their trees and stealing their garbage, all of which I did and all of which is revealed in the book.
Right. Like I said, I thought you took an approach where you owned what I consider to be unflattering behavior.
Oh, yeah.
Right. As a reader, I always appreciate honesty, especially in nonfiction. Right. I mean, fiction, I mean, it's there to entertain you, but to weave you through somebody's story. But with nonfiction, that's a very hard genre. in
Yeah,
general.
I mean, I think we've seen movies that are produced by the subject. Elton John produced a movie about himself. We just saw Martha Stewart produce a documentary about herself. And while I felt Martha's went pretty far, Elton's, I think, if it had been produced by anybody else, it would have showed a much darker, less likable, less redeemable character than what we saw in the movie. So I was aware of that, and I always felt cheated when I saw these projects that were produced by the subject. And I didn't feel that I wanted to do that. I didn't want to waste readers' time. If they bought my book, if they were kind enough to go on Amazon and buy my book, I wanted to give them a real roller coaster ride and show how far somebody can come and what people are capable of doing to meet these celebrities. I mean, there's one story in there about I was so desperate to meet Victoria Principal from Dallas. She played Pam Ewing that I made an appointment with her husband, who was a plastic surgeon, to get a nose job, and I went through with it. I actually got the nose job and I met Victoria, and she complimented her husband's work. And so we were friendly for a while, and then we had a falling out, which I write about in the book. And then right before this book came out, she gave me a call and we had an hour phone conversation, which I mentioned in the book. So it's really about the evolution of relationships too. You don't have to be the same person you were in your youth. You can learn, you can grow, you can change. And at the end of every chapter, I have a lesson learned that helped me grow. And I think it's lessons that people can relate to their own lives if they choose to.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I would absolutely agree with that. Um, what's your what's your favorite story that you
Mm,
write about?
Gosh, I mean, there's so many. It's the wild ones. Like, how did I end up here? It's really those moments. It's how did I end up in a tree at Dean Martin's funeral? I rented a tree that was overlooking the lectern where the guest book was. This branch was reaching over the wall of the cemetery, and there was a neighbor who rented me his tree for $500, and I was up there and I was able to see Frank Sinatra and Don Rickles, all these celebrities walking in to pay their respects. And after the service, I stayed up in that tree and I heard Rosemary Clooney, George's aunt, singing "When the Moon Hits Your Eye Like a Big Pizza Pie." That's amore. When I was in Hawaii and I was tracking down the daughter of Batman, TV's Adam West, to get an interview with her in prison because she was serving time for trying to murder her in-laws. Stories about being at a nudist colony with Tammy Faye Baker. That happened, and she burst into tears, just like we always remember her crying on TV with the mascara running. So things like that, getting blacklisted by the Scientologists over a Kirstie Alley story, um, and how I got out of these situations. Those are some of the fun ones.
So, but also I want to hit upon the fact that you were the first interview with Nicole Brown Simpson's grieving family after the murder.
Yeah.
How does that come about?
Well, I didn't always choose my stories. A lot of times the phone would ring and a scoop would come in, and we were sent by our editors to go get the story. And whether you're a reporter for CNN or the Inquirer, sometimes you really dread these assignments. CNN, these people are sent to war places where things are exploding all around them. Afghanistan, Iran. I was sent into another sort of war zone, which in this case was the home of Nicole Brown Simpson's grieving family 3 days after she had been laid to rest. So they had done no interviews. They lived in a private gated community. And the Inquirer told me, get in there. And I tried flower deliveries. I tried grocery deliveries. The security guards were very careful to not let anybody in. Ultimately, I hopped a wall. I snuck into the gated community. I found the home. I rang the doorbell. The housekeeper answered and led me in to see Nicole's mother, who was seated around a photo of her daughter with the other surviving daughters. And Mrs. Brown took my hand and said, "Thank you so much for coming. How did you know our Nicole?" And talk about my heart beating a mile a minute and wanting to escape, run as fast as I could. But I told the truth. I didn't lie. I told them why I was there. And in the end, I ended up getting a very heartfelt story from them that they appreciated. And that led to a long-term relationship between the Inquirer and the Browns working together to try to expose a horrible man and what he had done to their daughter.
Yeah.
I think they appreciate, you know, up until then, everyone was talking just about OJ. And this was the beginning of shifting the conversation to Nicole's story. And they were very desperate for people to know about her, who the victim was, and not just
Right.
celebrating this charismatic killer.
Yeah. Um, to your credit, you do tell them the truth, which I think would causes the relationship to actually begin, right? I mean,
Yeah, there are instances in the book when I didn't say who I was. There are certainly times when I lied um, in hospitals to find out how people had really died. There's a story in there about how I was able to get a tombstone for a celebrity whose family hadn't installed his stone. They were feuding, and I arranged to have the cemetery call all the family members and arrange a time for the stone to be installed so that I could be there with my photographer and get pictures of the tombstone being installed. So some of these things I just couldn't have pulled off if I told them I was with the Inquirer. So I did have to play actor and spy to get things done, and I take accountability for that as well. And
and you talk about wrestling the bear, right?
well, I was just going to say, you know, I mean, I do have a a chapter in there full of photos of me wrestling an actual bear. Um, and they did have us do this kind of crazy stunts. I spent a day as a 80-year-old man trying to see if I could sneak into movies with a discounted rate. But yeah, one of the stunts they had us do was wrestle a bear, me, and I used those photos in a chapter where I'm not allowed to reveal the identity of a real TV star who physically beat me up. There was a non-disclosure sign, so I'm not allowed to reveal the identity of that person. So instead of the photos of the sitcom star, there's pictures of a grizzly bear named Bogey beating me up. But there are enough hints in that chapter that people are guessing who that sitcom star was who sent me to the hospital.
Yeah. Not a good day.
Nah, not a good day. No, no.
So you talk too about, I guess you'd call high speed chases, to get
Yeah,
information on
yeah,
Elizabeth Taylor or Britney Spears.
yeah.
Um, all part of the job, I guess. All right, but what's interesting to me is most stories are told really from the other point of view, right? The lady Diana, being chased down, are told from the point of view of I'll say the victims really,
Yeah, sure.
that are being pursued. But you sort of tell you a story from your point of view, right?
Yeah, I
Uh,
mean, there's two high
as the
speed.
pursuer.
Right. Yeah, no, I mean, I was the one. It's interesting though because the first one I talk about is a pursuit of Elizabeth Taylor. She was on her way to the hospital to get a procedure. I think it was a hip replacement. And the Inquirer knew that she was going to be going to get a procedure, but didn't know what hospital. So they wanted me posted outside of her home, stalking her home, staked out her home to find out when she was going and then follow her. And so I did. And we're going down Bel Air, the streets of Bel Air, and her driver goes right, and then I go right, and then they go left, and then they start to go faster. This is before Princess Diana's tragedy, but I listened to the little angel perched on my one shoulder and ignored the little devil who was saying, go further, go, you can do this. That was the voice of my editors who it was like working for the mafia. They would just encourage you to do these horrible things. And when you did, they would praise you and give you more money, literally bonuses if your story ended up on the cover of the paper that week. But I couldn't do this. I didn't want to cause this woman who was going to the hospital to get into an accident. So I pulled over on the side of the road. Um, but another story that I write about occurred after the death of Princess Diana. And that sparked me to come up with an idea to spend a day with a paparazzi, and I was in the back seat of a paparazzi. We didn't know what the day would hold. It started out quite slow. We first got some photos of Jessica Alba, working at a gym. I'm like, boy, this is going to be awfully boring. And then he got a tip that Britney Spears was going to be leaving her compound in Malibu with her husband at the time, Kevin Federline, and a child. And this led to a high speed chase down the 405 that went on for almost an hour. and I was just an observant in this. I was not the one who was at the driver's wheel. I was just kind of a victim, if you can say, of a paparazzi trying to get a story. But it was fascinating because other vans started to join the caravan. And when they went faster, we went faster. And suddenly we were in a very dangerous situation of going 90 miles per hour. And I could see this child, Kevin Federline's child's head bouncing up and down in the back of the van. But I could not pull over. But I knew from talking to this paparazzi that if they could get a photo, they could get at the time up to $150,000 for some of these photos if it was juicy enough. And you can see why they're tempted to do these things, but at a potentially great cost.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Well,
I
all these
mean,
little stories. Yeah.
to think that they actually are worth that much, right? That much money to be offered or paid for. I mean, at the end of the day, I like to think of whoever you're looking at, whether it's a singer, movie star, they're people, right, doing a job that
Yes.
is creative, a creative job.
Yeah.
Um, and creativity takes many forms, right? And their job is acting in those or singing those songs that get created by somebody else and or themselves. And so their job happens to be more public. Um,
Yeah, it's having been out of this world now for a while. Certainly, it's a long time since I worked at the Inquirer. I went on to work for legitimate outlets like USA Today and TV Guide and People and Entertainment Weekly. But having not been pursuing celebrities anymore, I kind of am like, why do we care so much? Over the weekend, I was at Cirque du Soleil in Santa Monica, and we noticed, my partner and I noticed that just the row in front of us is Jennifer Lopez. And there's Jennifer Lopez, and she has kind of an interesting entourage with her. But we're all just having the same human experience here. We're watching a show, and then during the intermission, I got up and went to the bathroom. I imagine she did as well. And then we sat back down and watched people twirling in the air. But I did notice, and myself included, that a lot of time we were watching J-Lo more than we were some of the acrobats. There's a fascination with them, but they are just people who are making a ton of money. But afterwards, I know she went to a restaurant and we went on to a restaurant. Who cares really? Why I can see us caring about their characters and what they do in a movie or how they tell us sing a song or how they act in a video, but why do we care so much about who they're dating? And I think it must be just that we have an emptiness in our own lives, kind of a boredom, and need to think that like TV characters, like the TV characters I was obsessed with as a kid, that their lives are more fascinating than their own, and we want to live sort of vicariously through them. And just as the probably the people in Egypt live vicariously through the stories of Cleopatra and King Tut. These are our kings and queens, our pharaohs.
yeah, well, I also wanted to talk a little bit, about your personal journey, right? With, uh, I guess, being a kid and wanting to uh, and being so fascinated with celebrities, because I do think it's indicative of many people's experiences. Right. I mean, I
Yeah.
think a lot of people find especially young people, right? They find their sense of what they like and who they are by emulating oftentimes celebrities. Schoolyards are filled with conversations about the latest movie. I mean, I can remember being a kid when Grease came out, right in the
Oh, yeah.
schoolyard, and that's all anybody could talk about. And there were little miniature performances of, Summer Lovin',
Oh,
from
yeah.
different groups, so I think I think the entertainment industry has such a incredible influence over the
Yeah, yeah.
society.
I think about that, and I think about when I was growing up, we would play the $6 Million Man and the Bionic Woman, and we would
Yeah.
make noises when we were jumping, like woo, and we would some of us would have a golden lasso like Wonder Woman and try to lasso somebody in and make them tell the truth. James Bond. And I wonder now what games kids are playing today, because I guess there are some of those superhero shows, but for the most part, everything just seems so violent. Certainly the shows that are being recognized. When I was a kid, Lindsay Wagner, who played the Bionic Woman, she won Best Actress at the Primetime Emmys. She won the award. Those kind of genre shows are ignored now by the Academy. They aren't viewed as legitimate, respected entertainment. Now it's things like Game of Thrones and The Sopranos, Dexter, very violent things, and I wonder, are kids pretending to be serial killers? And I in fact know they are, because I remember I was at Comic-Con a few years ago, and the producers of Dexter were very excited to introduce a new video game where the player could be Dexter. He could hunt his victims and wrap them up in plastic, and this is like a training video for how to be a serial killer. And I think about that compared to me being Batman trying to catch the Joker. It's pretty
Yeah.
scary, and I think it does explain why there's so much violence now in playgrounds and at schools. Kids are being trained to be monsters.
Yeah, and I thought the one thing I, I really liked about your book is you sort of highlight, the fascination we have with the entertainment industry, right? And the stars that push it along, right? And the names change, but the obsession remains the same, doesn't it?
Well,
So
I don't know. Are you obsessed with any celebrities? Who would you say you're obsessed with?
I wouldn't say I'm obsessed with any celebrities. I'm more of a book gal. Uh,
Okay. Yeah, yeah.
But I mean, I have celebrities that I certainly like. I love Harry Connick Jr.'s music. Um, but I get more excited, I think, about like the authors that come on because since I was a kid, I was big into reading.
Uh,
So I tell the story all the time. I remember my mom holding my hand and taking me into the library for the first time, and like
oh,
like like the harps played. I walked in and like there were books everywhere, and I was like, I have found my place. Like
it was
I
so
knew.
exciting, before the internet, and you didn't know what books you would find. And I remember actually finding the Wizard of Oz books for the first time. And I had only known there was the book, The Wizard of Oz. And then when I saw there was Ozma of Oz and the Scarecrow from Oz and the Wonderful Wizard of Oz, they went on and on and on. Countless books that I could only read one at a time and hope that they weren't checked out in the library. It was really like going to Hollywood. The bookstore was a
Absolutely.
magical place.
I get it. So I'm more into books, I think. So when I meet an author or somebody like that I really respect, I think I get a little more flustered, maybe, or starstruck than
Sure.
I do with a singer or movie star. But uh, there are many movie stars. I mean, I did an interview with Shelley Fabares, and I was a little starstruck for her, right? Because movies with Elvis, and as a fan of the Coach Show. Um, so yeah, I mean, I do think that there are times where I probably would be a little starstruck, but I don't think I'm more representative of the average society. Like I think average society is slightly more obsessed with our entertainers than is probably healthy. I mean, I think years ago we thought of them more as these creative people, and we loved the stories. It's the same little kid wanting the bedtime story. So, like, we want to see this show or see this movie because they're telling us a story. Whereas, like now, it doesn't quite feel the same way, does it?
I mean, I don't, I don't think so. I think that people are now so exposed to these celebrities through social media. And so many of them, the ones certainly that have the highest following, are the ones that share the most about their lives. They're not trying to hide their lives, they're trying to share every aspect of it. Of course, the Kardashians, people like Selena Gomez, who has like the highest following of any celebrity, and I think that that's fine. They're known not only for their work, they're known for who they present themselves to be as a person. And I think the problem there is that when these people become the role models and they want to be famous, they maybe don't want to be an actress or be a creative or a musician. They just want to be famous, somebody who has followers like they do. So that I think is a problem there. And to get famous, a lot of these people are doing things that is the quickest way to get followers, doing extreme things or taking their clothes off. So it's going to be very interesting long term to see the effects of social media, especially on young people, and how that shapes them into the people that they are. I was fascinated with these people, but I also went ahead and went to college and got the skills to be a writer and went to work to be a journalist. And I developed a life outside of these people as well to get me forward. And ultimately, I lost my fascination with a lot of these people and was able to go on to other things. And I went to work for the Hallmark Channel for 9 years, working as an producer over there. And that was a chance for me to meet all these people in a new way. The same people that I was going after as a stalker, I was inviting to come play with me on the TV show as my guest. So it's also about that journey as well. How they got to see me as a producer who was actually employing them and helping them promote whatever projects they wanted to promote, as opposed to hide the secrets they feared would be exposed.
Sure. I mean, and I think it's different when you switch hats a little bit, right? And you get to know somebody. So I think you had a lot of lovely comments in your book, right? Certainly Melissa Gilbert does one.
Hmm.
Um, and Bruce Willis, I want to say, did one. Uh,
Well, no, 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 no,
no.
no, oh, no. So I have a combination. The book is filled with little essays from celebrities who got to know me later in life. Back in the day, I crashed Melissa Gilbert's wedding, and but we became friends later on. I put together a Little House on the Prairie reunion show on Hallmark, and so she wrote a lovely one-page essay about her feelings about the tabloids. But I do also include some quotes in there from people like Bruce Willis and Dick Van Dyke and Leonard Nimoy, and Kelsey
I
Grammer.
want to say Bruce Willis was threatening you or something. I don't
Yeah,
know
yeah,
if that
yeah.
was
So these
real
these
or.
were these were things that were said to me or written about me by them in their books. And so I included some of those nasty comments about me. I mean, Bruce Willis threatens to burn my house down. Kelsey Grammer wrote about me in his book and called me a despicable piece of flesh whom he invited to burn in hell. So I thought instead of just having, like most authors do, a list of all the wonderful comments about the person, since I did what I did for a living, I thought it was fair to also show a sampling of the celebrities who continue to hate me to this day, if they're still alive. And sadly, there are some of those too. For every celebrity who decided to contribute an essay to my book, there were others that were like, "Well, good luck. I want nothing to do with you." So I
Couldn't see you in
hated
a
them
new
when,
light. Like could not
yeah,
see you in a new light, could not
or just
accept you.
or couldn't be bothered. Have moved on and don't care, which is fine. Which is fine. They
Yeah.
they owe me nothing.
I have to, before I let you go though, I have to talk a little bit about your experience with Desperate Housewives.
There they are, right there,
Right?
the ladies, Eva and Felicity and Marcia.
Marsha, I could see behind you, yeah.
Yeah, Terry was standing off over here because she wasn't speaking to them at the time. But I do have several photos of the book of me with Terry, some at the White House when I took her to meet George Bush. So yeah, yeah,
So, I mean, I remember that show as being huge, right? The impact on the show when it was its hottest.
sure.
It was the equivalent, maybe I'm overspeaking, but the equivalent of like when Dallas was at its hottest when we were young.
It was the kind of show that everybody was watching, everyone was talking about, and it was really before streaming, so it was still appointment television. You would watch that on Sunday nights and then talk about it the next day, and the mysteries, the cliffhangers. Yeah, it was really kind of exciting time, and now we're all kind of watching our own things. And instead of like, oh my God, what did you think of Sam and Diane last night on Cheers or Joey and Rachel on Friends? It's, well, what are you watching? Oh, I haven't heard of that. Should I watch that? Yeah, it's 8 episodes. You can get through it pretty quick. That's the conversations now. We're not all kind of united in our viewing habits.
Yeah, fair enough. So your experience though there is an interesting one with
Yeah.
Desperate Housewives.
Yeah, I was the reporter granted more access than any other to Desperate Housewives. I became friendly with the showrunner there, the creator of the show, Mark Cherry, and I got to interview all the women, almost all of the women in their homes. Um, Eva Longoria, she was my neighbor just 10 houses up the street. So I went to her house and she made me huevos rancheros and gave me a tour of her spectacular home. Um, Marcia, she made me muffins in her home. Terry had a lovely sushi spread for me when I arrived at her place. But the Marcia story is one of the ones that I enjoy telling because it was another moment of devil and angel. Which option will I choose? I was scheduled to go to Marcia Cross's home for a lovely at-home interview to meet her new little baby girls. I had even purchased some little presents, some onesies for the girls. It was going to be a lovely day. And when I arrived, she had made muffins, and I saw a big bouquet of flowers that her husband had left before he went to work. We had a wonderful day. But as I was pulling up to Marcia's home, I got a text from a friend who said, "Did you see the story that broke today on Marcia Cross?" I'm like, "Oh God, no, what is it?" There have been nude photos leaked of her online, photos that had not appeared in a long time. She was naked in her backyard showering. You could see everything. And so I am festering in the whole interview. Do I bring this up? Do I not? No editor had told me I had to bring it up. It was my choice. And the Inquirer boy in me, the bad boy, got the best of me. And I brought it up at the very end of the interview, and it ruined the day. It just ruined all the happiness. I felt terrible about it. And so when I was finishing the book, she was the first celebrity I reached out to. And I said, "Listen, I've written this book. It's sort of my confessional, my mea culpa. And I offer an apology to you. Would you be willing to read it?" And she not only read it, but she offered to write the first essay. And she talked about more than being mad at me, she was furious at the photographer, the blackmailer, who she had paid $10,000 to make sure these photos would go away and never be seen. And then all of a sudden they were back. So, what was really cool about these essays these celebrities wrote is that it sort of unveiled more secrets that we didn't know about, things that they do to make the stories go away. Melissa Gilbert, talks about how the tabloids have ruined her lives, and she uses some very frank words to describe her feelings about the tabloids. So even though I wasn't trying to get more dirt out of these people, their essays offer insight into what it means to be the victim of one of the paparazzi. And I just did a book signing in Palm Springs, and at my side was actress Linda Gray, who played Sue Ellen on Dallas, and she's
Yeah.
become a friend. She wrote a lovely essay in the book about how I stalked the I had to find out who the liver donor was for Larry Hagman. So I did that. And But Linda Gray has since become a friend. And in my Q&A with her in Palm Springs, I asked her about her experiences with the tabloids and what it was like for her to suddenly just see herself on the cover of a magazine in the grocery store with some bizarre headline about who she was dating, somebody maybe she hadn't even met yet. So it's very strange for them because sometimes these stories were true. The Inquirer spent a lot of money and manpower to get to the truth, but a lot of times these stories were just purely made up, as if the writers of the tabloids were writing for Days of Our Lives or The Young and the Restless, using these celebrities as if they were real life characters.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and there's also talk in the book about how magazines that are still popular today, like Life and Style and In Touch, how they sort of treat people like Angelina Jolie and Brad Pitt and Jennifer Lopez and Ben Affleck as if they were characters. And they were literally just make up storylines over months and months and months. A friend of mine who I worked with at the Inquirer ended up becoming the editor of one of these magazines. And he told me how they would just get together and plan a storyline between Jennifer Aniston, Brad Pitt, and Angelina Jolie about who was going to get married that week, who was going to get engaged, who was going to get divorced, who was talking about having babies, who was pregnant. And the celebrities and their representatives just looked away. As long as there wasn't a story that was really going to cause, defamation, as long as they didn't accuse them of using drugs or being an alcoholic or being abusive, then they would just look the other way because otherwise they would be in court constantly. And let's face it, having these faces on magazines every day keeps their celebrity up. It's
Yeah.
it's free publicity. So you know how much money it costs to get that kind of ad space? on every
Yeah.
checkout line and every grocery store in America?
Well, I'm going to put the link to your book up, and tell people where they can find out more information about you.
Well, thank you, Tony. So yeah, I made it really easy. The book is called When You Step Upon a Star. So if they want to know more about the book, including some chapter excerpts, they can go to whenyoustepUponAstar.com. If you're already interested enough to buy it for Christmas presents, I know people are making this a stocking stuffer for people who are interested in this kind of talk, this world of celebrity and redemption. Then they can go onto Amazon and they can buy When You Step Upon a Star on Amazon. It's also available in Kindle form on Amazon. You can go to Apple Books, or barnesandnoble.com is also offering the book. So lots of ways to acquire When You Step Upon a Star for Christmas.
Yeah, I think it's just for everybody who's ever liked a TV show. Like this is totally worth a read. Um, thank you for being here. I really think thank you for opening up these conversations because I think your book does do that as well. It opens up different, interesting, and maybe even sometimes difficult conversations. As I said, that's the part of the, obsession with Hollywood or celebrities that America has, and the impact that has all around. I think that's an important conversation to have, and I think you do open up that dialogue. But I really like that you told your story, like I said, into the kind of the underbelly of that world, warts and all,
Well,
right?
yeah,
Which
and
which
although
is
it is my secrets, I mean, I do tell some bad behavior of celebrities who were inappropriate with me. I mean, there's one sitcom star that I worshipped who reached between my legs and grabbed me at backstage at the Emmy Awards. So and that I wasn't overly deeply offended by that. I was more just like completely surprised. But now that we know more about the Me Too movements, we can look back at that and realize that some of these celebrities just think that they are beyond the rules. That any kind of contact with a fan is welcome. That's a little gift. It was almost. I think I had a feeling this person felt as if he were giving me an autograph or a photo. Instead, he grabbed me in the nether regions and gave me a wink and walked off. So it's remarkable. The lives that some of these celebrities live, which is in some cases very similar to ours, but in other cases incredibly different.
yeah. So on that note, I'll leave everybody saying this is something you want to read. It's absolutely a fascinating read into this world of that most of us know so shockingly little about.
Yeah,
Um,
thank you.
so thank you for being here, and I hope as
Thank
you
you for
keep
having
writing,
me.
I hope as you keep writing, you'll come back, keep talking to me.
Yeah, I'm working on my next book now, which is actually a book of historical fiction. So
Oh, one of
yeah.
my favorite genres. So definitely, I'll keep my eye open
Oh,
and
good. Okay, well let's stay in touch, Tony.
You got it. Thank you so much for being here, and he'll be back, everyone.
I would love to. Bye bye, everybody. Merry
Bye.
Christmas.